Have you ever found yourself staring out the window, coffee in hand, thinking, who would I call if something really went wrong? Maybe you've moved recently, lost touch with old friends, or you're just feeling the silence more than usual. That moment, when we realize our circle has gotten smaller, can be eye-opening. And you know what? You're not alone in that. More and more people are recognizing just how much our support systems matter, especially as we get older. It's not just about having someone to drive you to an appointment or water your plants when you're away. It's about feeling seen, heard, and valued. That's what we're diving into today. Why building a support network is one of the most powerful things you can do, not just for your happiness, but for your health too. Now, let me tell you a little story. My neighbor, Carol, is 72 and just glowing with life. Every Tuesday, she hosts a book club. Nothing fancy, just a few women sitting in her kitchen with tea and muffins. But it's her lifeline. When her husband passed, she told me, I don't know what I would have done without them. That small group rallied around her, checked in every day, made sure she didn't eat dinner alone for weeks. That's the power of a support network. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be real. Science backs this up in a big way. In fact, one of the most comprehensive studies on aging, the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which has tracked people for over 80 years, found that close relationships, more than money or fame, are what keep people happy and healthy throughout life. The researchers didn't mince words. Good relationships literally keep us alive longer. So what are we going to cover in this video series? We're going to unpack exactly what makes a strong support network, why it's so critical for your physical and emotional well-being, and how you can build or rebuild those connections, no matter your age, personality, or circumstances. Even if you're starting from scratch, I promise it's not too late. We'll talk about practical ways to find your people, how to deepen relationships you already have, and how to overcome the fears and doubts that hold so many of us back. Because let's face it, making new friends in adulthood can feel awkward, even scary. But it's absolutely doable, and more rewarding than you might expect. Before we keep going, I'd love your help with something. If you're enjoying this video so far, comment Y below. If not, comment N. It helps me know what's working and what to improve. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Now let's dive deeper. So let's start with the foundation. Why does a support network matter so much biologically and emotionally? You've probably heard of the stress hormone cortisol. It's the one that spikes when we're anxious, overwhelmed, or isolated. Chronic loneliness can keep cortisol levels elevated, which wears down the body over time, affecting everything from immune function to heart health. According to the CDC, social isolation is associated with about a 50% increased risk of dementia, a 29% increased risk of heart disease, and a 32% increased risk of stroke. That's not small stuff. But here's the good news. Having even one or two meaningful connections can actually buffer against that stress. A study published in PLOS Medicine found that strong social ties increase your odds of survival by 50%, which is on par with the benefits of quitting smoking. Let that sink in. Being connected to others is literally life-extending. And it's not just about emergency contacts or ride shares. Emotional support, someone who listens, validates, and encourages you, is powerful medicine. I remember one woman I interviewed for a wellness article a while back. She had gone through a tough divorce in her 60s and moved to a new city. She told me that joining a local gardening group saved her. Not because of the plants, but because of the people. They gave me a reason to get out of bed, she said. They made me feel like I mattered again. So where do you start if your current support circle is thin or non-existent? First, take stock. You might have more support than you think. It could be a sibling, a neighbor, a former co-worker you haven't spoken to in a while. Reaching out can feel awkward, but more often than not, people are grateful you did. One simple message, "Hey, I was just thinking of you," can open the door. And remember, quality beats quantity. A handful of people you truly trust is far more valuable than a big circle of acquaintances. If you can laugh with them, cry with them, or call them at 2 a.m. when something goes wrong, that's your support network. Of course, not everyone you reach out to will become a close friend. Some connections will be casual, others deep. And that's okay. Just like a garden, relationships need tending. Some will flourish, others might wither. But the more seeds you plant, the more likely something beautiful will grow. And if starting over feels overwhelming, don't worry. We're going to talk about exactly how to do that in the next part of this series. We'll explore ways to meet new people, even if you're introverted, new in town, or just rusty at small talk. Trust me, it's easier than you think, and more important than you realize. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. This video is for informational purposes only and is based on publicly available research. Everyone's health is different, so always consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your lifestyle, diet, or exercise routine. Scientific knowledge is always evolving, and what works for one person may not work for another. Now let's keep going. So, we ended the last video with that big question. Where do you even start when it feels like you're rebuilding from the ground up? Let me tell you about someone I met last year. His name's Gerald. He's 68, retired, and after his wife passed, he realized most of his social life had revolved around her. She was the connector, he told me. Without her, I didn't know where to begin. It took him a while, but eventually, he signed up for a community woodworking class. And wouldn't you know it, that one class turned into friendships, regular lunches, and even a few volunteer gigs. I had no idea how much I needed people until I started showing up again, he said. That's the key, showing up, even if it's uncomfortable at first. And that leads us to the first major step in building a support network. Put yourself in proximity to others regularly. Whether it's a walking group, a volunteer role, a spiritual community, or a class at the library, it doesn't have to be flashy, just consistent. Social psychologist Susan Pinker talks about this in her book, The Village Effect. She points out that face-to-face contact actually boosts our mood, increases trust, and triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. So even if you're shy, or you're more of a homebody, finding low-pressure ways to be around people can work wonders. You don't have to become a social butterfly. You just have to say yes a little more often than no. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but I've tried and people just aren't as open as they used to be. And you're right in a way. It does sometimes feel harder to make genuine connections these days. We're more digitally connected than ever, but face-to-face conversations? Those take effort, vulnerability, time. But the beautiful part is that effort pays off. One small study out of the University of Kansas found that it takes roughly 50 hours of time together to move from acquaintance to casual friend, and about 200 hours to form a close friendship. That might sound like a lot, but spread over months, it's totally doable. A weekly coffee chat, a monthly book club, a standing walking date, it adds up. And here's something else. Your support network doesn't have to look like it did in your 30s or 40s. In fact, some of the most powerful connections later in life are born from shared values, not shared history. You might find your new best friend in someone 20 years younger or older than you. Intergenerational friendships bring richness and perspective that same-age friendships sometimes can't. It's all about connection, not conformity. Now, if you're someone who's more introverted or hesitant to dive into social situations, I hear you. I really do. But building a support network doesn't mean you have to attend every potluck or community festival. You can start small. One-on-one coffee dates, a pen pal group, even an online community that meets in person once in a while. The goal isn't quantity, it's authenticity. Another tip that works beautifully? Be the one who initiates. I know it feels vulnerable, but it's powerful. Send that text. Make the call. Invite someone for a walk. More often than not, people are just waiting for someone to break the ice. And when you become that person, you not only create connection, you build confidence too. I remember my aunt, who's in her early 70s now, told me that when she moved into a new neighborhood, she spent the first few weeks waiting for someone to knock on her door and say hello. It never happened. So one morning, she baked a batch of muffins, walked over to 3 houses on her block, and introduced herself. That was the beginning of her neighborhood coffee circle. It just took one gesture. And let's not forget the power of listening. In our fast-paced world, truly listening to someone is a gift. You don't need clever conversation starters or perfect timing. Just being present, really present, with someone creates trust. And trust is the heart of every support system. By now, you might be seeing that building a support network isn't about networking or being overly social. It's about creating mutual care. You show up for someone, and they show up for you. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine connection. And when life throws its inevitable curveballs, illness, loss, transitions, those are the people who step in, who remind you of who you are, who sit with you, even in silence. That kind of support, it's priceless. And let's not overlook this next piece, emotional safety. It's one thing to have people around you. It's another to feel safe being vulnerable with them. As we age, emotional intimacy becomes even more important. We want to feel accepted, flaws and all. A strong support network includes people who don't judge, who don't try to fix everything, just listen, validate, and hold space. Which brings me to this: you deserve that kind of support. No matter your past, your personality, or your present situation. You don't have to earn it. You just have to open the door to it. And speaking of opening doors, in the next part of this series, we're going to talk about some of the biggest roadblocks that keep people from building those strong connections, like fear of rejection, past disappointments, or simply feeling like it's too late. I'll also share a few inspiring stories of people who overcame those very challenges. So if you've ever thought, it's just not in the cards for me anymore, trust me, you'll want to hear what's next. Let's talk about the part that's often the hardest, overcoming the internal roadblocks that keep us from reaching out and building the relationships we need. Because here's the truth. Sometimes the biggest barrier isn't the world around us. It's that little voice inside that says, "Why bother?" I hear this all the time. I've been burned before. I don't want to be a burden. People already have their own lives. I'm too old to start over. If any of those thoughts sound familiar, please know you're not alone. They're so common and so understandable. But let me share something personal. A woman I worked with once told me about the first time she tried to attend a grief support group after her partner passed away. She got dressed, sat in her car in the parking lot, and drove away. 3 times. It took her weeks to finally walk through the door. But when she did, she met people who understood her pain in a way no one else could. One of those people became her best friend. Another helped her find a therapist. That group changed her life. She told me, "I was so afraid of being vulnerable, but I was even more afraid of staying stuck." And that's the thing, fear is normal. But so is courage. And courage doesn't mean feeling fearless. It means showing up anyway. Sometimes it helps to reframe how we see connection. It's not about asking for help all the time, it's about mutual support. You have wisdom, lived experience, humor, kindness. All of that matters. You bring something valuable to the table. Your presence isn't a burden. It's a gift. There's a beautiful study I came across from the University of Michigan. Researchers found that people who regularly provided support to others, whether emotional, practical, or even just conversational, experience better health outcomes themselves. Helping others gave them a greater sense of purpose, reduced stress, and even led to longer lives. So it goes both ways. You're not just receiving, you're contributing. And that makes all the difference. Let's say you've tried to connect, but you've hit some rough patches. Maybe you've joined a group that didn't feel like a good fit, or tried to rekindle an old friendship that fizzled. That can feel disappointing. But it's not a sign to stop, it's a sign to try again, maybe in a different direction. Think of it like dating. Not every connection is meant to be deep and lasting. Some people come into your life for a season, others for a lifetime. And that's okay. The goal is to stay open enough to let new people in. Here's an example that really stuck with me. A man named Tom, in his early 70s, moved to a new town after retiring. He was used to having a big circle of friends back home, but in this new place, he didn't know a soul. He tried a few local meetups but felt out of place. Still, he kept showing up. Eventually, he started a men's breakfast at a local diner, just a casual gathering every Thursday. At first, it was just him and one other guy, but within a few months, they had a table full. Guys laughing, sharing stories, checking in on each other. That tradition is still going today, years later. All it took was consistency and a willingness to keep showing up, even when it felt uncertain. If you're struggling with confidence, start with low-stakes conversations. Compliment a cashier. Chat with a neighbor. Smile at someone in your yoga class. These small acts build social confidence over time. And the more you do them, the more natural they feel. It's also helpful to identify people in your life who already show kindness, curiosity, and care. These are your green light people, the ones who lean in when you talk, who follow up, who remember little details. Focus your energy there. One solid, reliable connection is worth more than 10 casual ones. And remember, it's okay to protect your energy. Not every relationship will be healthy or reciprocal. If someone consistently drains you, disrespects your boundaries, or leaves you feeling worse, not better, it's okay to let that connection go. Your support network should nourish, not deplete you. At this point, you might be wondering, what if I don't have a clear tribe yet? What if I'm still searching? Here's where I encourage you to think outside the box. Consider joining intergenerational groups, like local schools looking for volunteers, community mentorship programs, or shared interest groups that attract a range of ages. Younger generations can benefit immensely from your wisdom and experience, and they, in turn, can bring fresh energy and new perspectives into your life. There's also something very special about connecting over creativity. Art classes, writing groups, music meetups, they don't just create beautiful things. They build bonds. When we create alongside others, we open up in ways that regular conversation sometimes doesn't allow. One last tip I'll share here, and it's a big one. Be patient with yourself. Building or rebuilding a support network is not a race. It's a journey. Some weeks, you'll feel like you're making progress. Others, it might feel like you've hit a wall. That's normal. What matters is that you keep going. And if you ever start to feel discouraged, just remember this. Every strong relationship you see around you today started with a moment of uncertainty. A first hello, a shared smile, a quiet act of courage, which brings us to the final piece of our series. In the last part, we'll wrap everything up with simple steps you can take right now to start nurturing your own support network. We'll also revisit the science, share one final story, and leave you with an inspiring takeaway you can carry into the days ahead. You've come this far, let's finish strong. We've covered a lot so far, haven't we? From why support networks matter so much to how to start building them, and even how to keep going when things get tough. Now let's take a deep breath together and reflect on what really matters here. At the heart of everything we've talked about is this simple truth. We were never meant to go through life alone. Human connection isn't just a nice bonus, it's essential to our well-being. No matter your age, background, or life experience, the need to feel seen, heard, and supported never goes away. And guess what? You are worthy of that support. Let's quickly revisit the most important takeaways from our time together. First, science clearly tells us that strong social connections help us live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. That's not just some feel-good quote. It's been shown again and again in large-scale studies. One from Harvard, the study of adult development, tracked people for over 80 years and found that relationships, not wealth or fame, were the biggest predictors of happiness and health. Second, support comes in many forms. It's the friend who checks in, the neighbor who waves every morning, the group that meets once a week for book club or walking. It's also your doctor, your therapist, your family, your online community. Even your pet can be part of your emotional support system. Third, you don't have to wait for perfect circumstances to begin. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to take that first step. Maybe today, that's sending a text. Maybe tomorrow, it's signing up for a local class or saying yes to a coffee invitation. One of the most powerful things you can do right now is be intentional. Think of your support network like a garden. Some relationships need watering. Some need weeding. Others are ready to be planted. It's all part of the process. But if you keep showing up, if you stay curious and open-hearted, beautiful things will grow. Here's a small but mighty action step to try this week. Reach out to one person, just one, who you've been thinking about. Maybe someone you haven't spoken to in a while, or someone you admire and want to get to know better. It doesn't have to be anything profound. A simple, "Hey, I was thinking of you and would love to catch up," can go a long way. Sometimes, all it takes to reignite a connection is that little spark of kindness. And if you're starting from scratch, that's okay too. Look into local senior centers, volunteer programs, walking groups, or community classes. Libraries often have free events. So do churches, cultural centers, and even grocery stores with bulletin boards full of local happenings. If in-person isn't your thing right now, there are wonderful online groups with people just like you. Folks looking to connect, share, and grow. Let me leave you with one last story that still gives me chills. There was a man named Leo who, at 82, found himself completely isolated. His wife had passed, his kids lived far away, and most of his old friends had either moved or passed on. He told his daughter he felt invisible. So she helped him write a little note and post it on their community board, looking for someone to play chess with on Saturday afternoons. That one note, it led to 3 replies, then a group, then weekly meetups, then potlucks. Over the next 2 years, that chess club turned into a tight-knit circle of friends who supported each other through surgeries, birthdays, and everything in between. Leo said, "I thought my social life was over. Turns out, it was just beginning again." There's a quote by author Brené Brown that I absolutely love. "Connection is why we're here. It is what gives purpose and meaning to our lives." So whether you're reaching out for support or offering it to someone else, whether you're rebuilding or just beginning, remember that your efforts matter. They ripple out in ways you might never fully see. They create warmth in lonely places. They turn strangers into friends. And they remind all of us that we're not alone. You deserve that kind of support, and the world deserves what you bring to it. We'd really love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for future topics or questions you want answered, write to us in the comments below. We're here to help, and your input could inspire our next video. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on more practical tips for healthy aging. Here's to living your best life at any age. Take care, and remember, the next connection might be just one brave hello away.